We welcome in sports editor, columnist for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon. Sam, I mean this with the utmost respect. You're a grizzled vet. You've seen some stuff on your time covering not just Nebraska football, but Nebraska athletics. Grading against the Nebraska-specific curve, where do yesterday's events rank on the unexpected development scale in Husker athletics?
A 10, for sure. I think it ranks really high. I think probably if you had told me he's going to follow Ted Carter to Ohio State, that would have been more in line with what I thought was possible. For sure, I'm surprised that it's A&M, and it's 3 or 4 months after they signed he signed an extension. He's going to owe Nebraska a lot of money, but A&M is. So it's a 10. I mean, it's very surprising. It's the kind of thing you don't anticipate or expect happening. And it's something that the fallout is going to be considerable. There'll be fallout from it because it happened so quickly and it was so unexpected. It immediately leads to people to believe, like, okay, what the heck is going on over there that this guy would leave? I think Nebraska will receive more scrutiny than Trev will.
Sam, Eric Strickland here, man. Listen,
hey.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you as always. One of the things is it's like walking into a room with no lights on. That's what it feels like here at the University of Nebraska. I'm sure right now. How would you view it as far as the discussions maybe that he had or didn't have with his staff? How does it leave those who are came to work with him or have been working with him, how they feel about him? If you just look at this, not just from the AD perspective, from any perspective, a CEO leaving a company, those discussions, a coach, not really being able to talk to the players that you've asked them to run through walls for you on, and then leaving just seeds out there that haven't even germinated yet. What are some of the words that you're hearing maybe from the surrounding areas, or just thoughts on that?
Shocked. Yep, that's a word that I've heard.
Yeah.
I think there was probably a plan to do this better than it's been done. And for whatever reason, yesterday, people reached out to A&M reporters, right? Sources in the industry, in the sports industry, the college sports industry, reached out to A&M. And I don't know if it was to, finish it, or if it was to celebrate, or if it was to, oh my goodness, look what's happened. But something changed, right? So I don't think the plan was to announce this Wednesday night. I think there was probably an understanding in place. I feel like I know Trev well enough to know he didn't want to steal the men's team's thunder in Minneapolis the way that it's been. So I could have definitely seen this happen Monday of next week. It breaks on Monday. That way you got the selection and things go that way. And he may have had more time to make those conversations, but the way that the news broke, he had no time. There was no opportunity. And I don't know, maybe A&M is like, listen, we're moving on if you don't say yes. So we need a yes now. I don't know what would have been wrong with a yes on March 28th. But for whatever reason, the ball got moved forward very quickly. And I think he was taking several hours to decide, because I don't know that he had made up his mind in one way or another, but somehow it got, back channeled to A&M. And here we are. It's one of those moments. I certainly think, there were meetings scheduled this week that people expected to have, and then they got canceled. I think there was, surprise there. I think obviously some of the coaches were taken completely off guard. They were out of town. They were on vacation. So, we'll just have to see, how it all plays out. But yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of frustration in the room when it all went down. And, then people get the email. And so everybody's kind of waiting around for several hours yesterday. I even heard maybe around 3:30, well, maybe he'll stay, and then obviously he made the decision to go, and people move forward.
Yeah. And Sam, just this is just a hypothetical, because the emotions of it. We as people deal with this so much, just in life in general, right? But just I want to throw this to you and just get a personal feeling on it, because just say, for example, at the Omaha World-Herald, your top president, your leading editor, your senior editor, both of them decide that, okay, one's not coming back. So then, your CEO or your president or whatever it is there at the radio station, you're that's just open. It's 8 months. That's just open. And then you're dealing with other entities that you're not used to dealing with. And then all of a sudden that person just bounces. How would that affect you guys, like at a World-Herald?
I think it would be very affecting for sure. To be without, in this case, a publisher and also a main editor. I think that would be difficult if that hypothetical were to happen at any news organization. It hasn't really happened quite like that at the World-Herald, but those things happen. And at Nebraska, yeah, I mean, I'm sure Matt Rule has questions today.
Yeah.
I don't know what questions Fred Hoiberg has or doesn't have. I mean, I think, Fred doesn't have to have those kind of questions. I think he's coaching a basketball team at a university that hasn't, and this well, hasn't always valued basketball as much as it should.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, he has the AD he has, but I think he can keep plugging along for as long as he wants to in that role, provided they keep winning. But certainly Matt Rule's got questions today. Athletic department's got questions today. They had, a number of long-time athletic department staff members had either retired or left or let go in the last 2.5 years. And so the institutional knowledge of the place probably isn't as high as it was. The institutional knowledge of the place was locked up in Trev, and now Trev's gone. So there's going to be some things over there where like, okay, academics is going to be strong. I mean, Dennis is taking care of that, but there's going to be areas over there that are like, well, hey, new leadership again. We've done this many times. Now we got to figure out who's going to be the person in that office. I'm sure there's a lot of frustration that's just begun to set in.
There's a lot in that answer I want to unpack from Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald here. Sam, let's start with this. You say this happens from time to time. Like, it doesn't happen. The shock of it that you're mentioning, an alumni leaving, his alma mater. But at the same time, it does happen. ADs change over all the time. Would the shock of what happened yesterday and how it went down be the same at any university across the country? Or is it different because it's a Nebraska alum leaving Nebraska?
I think it's different. Yeah, the second one there. I do think that, Trev was so interconnected in the university system. It wasn't just the 3 years here at Nebraska, but it was the 12 years at UNO. And so he knows so many people, and was able to keep this quiet for a week, and then it breaks. Yeah, I think it is different because I never thought he was going to be a 30-year AD. I didn't. I think he burns pretty hot. He's a pretty intense guy. I think at UNO he had sort of bided his time, and there's only so much you could do at UNO. But I also felt like when he took the Nebraska job, he was sort of consciously moving into, okay, I'm going to move into this next stage of my career where I'm really going to press into football, which he didn't have at UNO because he got rid of it. And that was going to be, kind of a high octane thing. So I kind of thought that was the case. I thought he'd have to eventually move on from here because it was an intense place and he's an intense guy. I didn't think it'd be now. If you told me, hey, in 2027 he was leaving, that would make more sense to me. Like if he had, and he'd be like, well, Matt Rule just won 10 games. And the stadium project is complete. My work is done here. I've done the thing that I came here to do, which was modernize the stadium and put a coach in place that can get this program back where it wants. It's not my heart's desire to do this for 20 years. I'm going to go and find another role. That would have made sense to me. To do it now, I think points to there's obviously some irreconcilable differences, or in his mind, irreconcilable visions, where he just wasn't going to be able to get done the thing that he wanted to get done. I feel like if the Memorial Stadium project was already like fully funded and rocking and rolling, he might have wanted to see that through. I wonder if there was, like, I'm just not sure this will get done the way I envision it. And so, like, in leaving, he's not really leaving the project to someone else. It's almost like it's going to have to be reimagined. That's what we don't know.
There's so much that we don't know. We don't know the why and so many of those decisions behind the scenes. And some of it we might find out, some of it we might not. But Sam, another narrative I'm sure you've seen from fans, is people are asking why we're just hearing about these potential issues with vision and above the athletic director. And I don't think that's necessarily fair to say. I feel like these issues have been out there in some form or fashion.
Oh, yeah.
And we just saw, a big symptom with the dramatic development of yesterday.
Yeah. Like there's been stuff out there for sure. I mean, when Ted Carter left, that was part of it. But yeah, I mean, there's, from the very beginning, Trev has always been a guy that's been real honest with, how things needed to change at Nebraska. So he was a change agent. Like, he wasn't coming here to just kind of hang back and enjoy, the fact that he finally got to Nebraska. To be honest with you, Bill Moose was doing a lot of that. Bill Moose kind of treated the role like it was an emeritus job, and he didn't exactly do a ton when he got here. No, Trev was coming here to transform Nebraska athletics. And, in the conversations I had with him over the years, and there were many, he reveled a little bit in the, like, we're going to change this place, and people are not necessarily ready for everything that we're doing. And he kind of liked that. And I think there does come a point though, where if you feel like the momentum that you desire just doesn't have the same kind of, speed to it, maybe you get frustrated. And then the other thing is that I would think about is that it's just possible that he just knows so much and knows so many people here that it almost becomes a little overwhelming to, like, try to have all the answers for a place and not necessarily have the resources for the answers that you've given. Going to Texas A&M, it's just a job. It's a good job, but it's just a job. Like, you're going there to do a job. It's not a calling the way that Nebraska is. And sometimes, a job is what you need in your life, as opposed to a place where all the eyes look to you. Trev Alberts will not have to be the person who solves whatever issues Texas A&M has. Whereas at Nebraska, he had put himself in that position to be the guy that everybody looked to.
We're talking with Sam McKewon of the Omaha World-Herald here on our VIP line, brought to you by Aloe Fiber, where they understand the importance of exceptional service with local heart. Sam, you mentioned the word transformation and change agent relating to Trev Alberts. And to some degree, now the focus shifts to the future, since he did, take the Texas A&M job. At Nebraska, is it easier to be a change agent if you're familiar, you have that institutional knowledge, and you know how to relate to the power dynamics in place? Or is it about time for an outside voice who can build some of that relationship, but brings fresh ideas and a new perspective to take some of these leadership roles?
Yeah, I mean, I think an outside voice is fine. In a weird way, Trev Alberts was an outside voice. I mean, he didn't spend a lot of time around the program while he was at UNO, and he had outside thoughts. Like, he just had outsider perspective. And, he said hard things. I think that an ideal candidate coming in here would be somebody who can turn the temperature down a little bit, and somebody who, how's the right put, just does the job. Like, isn't necessarily always trying to look around the corner and trying to position, Nebraska for, I think Trev was genuinely concerned at times, that Nebraska was somehow going to be on the wrong side of some of this stuff with the Big Ten and AU and all these things. Like, I think he was, and they need an athletic director who comes in and is like, let's just run the best athletic department we can. let's try to do the things that we can. And you know what? Other people need to step up to the plate and have vision too. And sometimes I thought, and I say this with respect, like in so many circumstances, Albert's the smartest guy in the room. And I think sometimes it could just be like his vision and the way that he looked at things was just consuming. And maybe you need a person in there that's got a little bit smaller vision that's like, listen, I need to allow for the people who haven't necessarily stepped up to feel the gap of their not stepping up. And I think Trev was covering a lot of gaps. And now that he's gone, some of the people who maybe hadn't stepped up as much as they could have will have to do that. And I think an AD coming in can be the person that's like, I'm going to do this job really well and do it to the best of my ability and build relationships with people and maybe not worry so much about what had happened before or, grievances or frustrations or whatever, and just go forward from here. Because I think Trev Alberts leaves the place better than he found it.
That's the thing that I think we'll keep diving into is weighting what Trev Alberts did in his time at Nebraska versus the manner of his exit. But Sam, I'm going to touch on your column here briefly. The title, as Trev Alberts leaves, Nebraska's hopes shift to Matt Rule, who holds all the cards. What do you mean by that?
Well, when people talk about alignment, I totally understand this idea about you want a president and a chancellor and an AD and a coach who are on the same page. Well, the reality is that the people, the only one left behind right now is Rule, and there's just really no reason not to give him what he wants. And so, like, on some level, how do I put this? Matt Rule is probably somebody you can align behind, if that makes sense. There are other coaches that you could have that are like, listen, I don't know how to exactly articulate what I want, and I don't really have necessarily a process that's like super defined to get where I need to go, because I need to be mentored into being, sort of a fully grown head coach. You know what I mean? And so that person needs more alignment, because what they need somebody to put their arm around them and say, hey, here's how you do this, or let's navigate this thing that you screwed up. I don't know that Matt Rule needs that as much. So, like, the issues that, like, if somebody were to ask me, what is the largest issue facing Nebraska football? I'm not sure I'm going to look that far beyond. They got to play better quarterback. I mean, they got to get better quarterback play. Whereas, like, 5 years ago, it would have been like, the culture's not right, the funding isn't quite there, the facilities aren't quite what they need to be. The coaches the AD can't go down to the coaches floor in North Stadium. Like, I don't think all of those things are true anymore. And so, some of the problems, some of the things that you need alignment for are resolved by a person who just kind of handles their own stuff. And I think that's Rule. So I don't think it's going to be hard to give him what he wants. Like, and Eric probably understands this. At times it was hard to understand, to accommodate Bo Pelini. Sometimes it was hard to understand what he wanted. Like, sometimes he was just not happy, and you weren't quite sure why. Maybe he really wasn't. He didn't do anything wrong, or like Nebraska didn't do anything wrong. He was just discontent. And so, like, they needed somebody in there that doesn't maybe necessarily require that level of alignment. And I think Rule can just handle some things that a couple of his predecessors didn't do very well.
And I think we've seen that through even just a year and change of the Matt Rule tenure. And I think the way I interpret what you're saying, what you're reading, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's not like a player picking a coach. It's not Kevin Durant and James Harden coming together, say, Steve Nash is our guy. But I think the vision is, hey, Matt Rule is someone that our other head coaches can unite behind. You give some deference to a John Cook, a Mark Manning, but really it's Rule that's the forefront of that athletic department as a young head coach who has potential to be there for a long time. His input is valuable. With football as our moneymaker, it's not placating Matt Rule, but we have to make sure that he believes in us and our vision, so we don't lose that fourth pillar of what we thought we had.
That's right. That's right, for sure. And to be clear, I mean, Matt Rule is a big fan of Trev and a big fan of Ted Carter. And so, like, he likes, he liked that group of leaders for sure. But I mean, I think he knows that this business changes all the time, and things don't typically last. To be honest with you, Matt Rule hasn't spent more than about 4 years at a school, so things change all the time. That's just how college sports is now, and I think he'll be okay. I think he should have a large say in who the predecessor is, because I think, or who Trev's successor is, because I think Matt Rule has good people skills. Like he's a person that he's a person whose advice you would ask about something like that. Like he's, there's other people that might be at Nebraska who are like, well, the coach, the AD I want to pick is the one who's going to leave me alone. And that's really not the ideal AD for anyone. Like if you want a boss who's a good boss, you need to have somebody who just challenges you at times. And so I think Rule understands that. And I think he'll make his pick. He'll give his preference accordingly. And I just think they're in a much better position with the coach than they were 3 years ago, than they were when Mike Riley was there. And I love Mike, but I mean, he was sort of the forgetful professor, like, hey, everybody, how's it going? Well, people are going behind your back and making all kinds of moves. So that's how it's going. Matt Rule's way more attuned to those things. And I think they're just in a better position than they have been at the coaching spot.
Plenty more questions I could ask you, Sam. I'm sure we'll get some answers here in the near future from you and your staff at omaha.com. Follow Sam on Twitter. Sam, really appreciate you making some time for us. Best of luck following all of this. I know we'll be tuned in. Thanks for the time.
Take care.